March 31st, Transgender Day of Visibility, happened to have stumbled upon Easter. Easter, as we talked about a bit in the last hour, the most important event in human history, the linchpin of the Christian faith. If Jesus did not rise from the dead, then he would be like Muhammad. But he would be worse than that, because he would be not just some guy, he would be either a liar or a lunatic, saying he was Lord. He lied and knew he wasn't and lied, or was just like a crazy person. But he did rise from the dead, so that makes him Lord. It's everything. It's the most important thing that ever happened. It's the dying and the rising. That's the basis for baptism, by the way. Romans 6:4 says, we were therefore buried with him through baptism into death, in order that just as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, we may live a new life again. New life. Now you're born again. And Jesus made this point after this baptism point, that reformation isn't enough. You can't just self-help a couple things. You can't self-help change a few things here and there and be saved. You need a radical conversion. We live in a self-help culture. We live in a self-help culture because we're told that you're born good. And we know that's obviously not true, because we do bad things all the time. So then you're told, well, you just need a little self-help. You need to just fix a few things about yourself here and there, and then you'll be good enough. Or at least you'll be better than that guy. It's like, no. You need, Jesus said you need to be born again, which leads to my favorite C.S. Lewis analogy, and I'll take this opportunity to do it. The other day, we talked about my third favorite C.S. Lewis analogy, and then last week we mentioned my second favorite C.S. Lewis analogy. And here's the best. C.S. Lewis, he said, imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what he's doing. He's getting the drains right, stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing, so you're not surprised. But presently, he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. What on earth is he up to? The explanation is that he's building quite a different house from the one you thought of. Throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were being made into a decent little cottage with self-help, but he is building a palace, and he intends to come and live in it himself. The decent little cottage, I just need a little self-help. I just need a little help around the edges here. And he's like, no, we're going to knock it all down. You don't need a little home improvement. You need to tear it all down. You need to be born again. You need to start fresh. You need to build a palace for the Holy Spirit to live in. Anyway, I could go on. The point is, that's the importance of Easter. It's everything. And the White House, the Biden White House was sure to declare yesterday, in light of all this, Transgender Day of Visibility. Now, I would do a segment on this, even if it didn't happen to fall on Easter Sunday, because I would say that transgenders are very visible right now, more visible than ever. When have transgenders been more visible in your life? It used to be just RuPaul. Every once in a while, RuPaul would pop up somewhere. And now it's Joe at your local YMCA women's locker room. Or maybe next week, you'll get a trans at your kid's kindergarten classroom, because there's no way kids can learn to read unless a drag queen is reading to them, don't you know? We used to be all about phonics, but phonics are no good unless a drag queen is teaching it. My wife said, I talked to her about this yesterday, she's like, when you do transgender visibility, you can't, like, she said that she's like, we can't bring my daughter, she's 6, to Ulta. I guess last week my Grace and wife went to go to Ulta, the makeup place, because like all the employees are trans. And my wife said there was a obvious guy who has tons of makeup on, wearing a tank top with armpit hair sticking out. And my 6-year-old daughter is the purest and sweetest, most wonderful little thing in the whole world. We watched a little bit of the NC State game yesterday, and I said, oh, they're the underdogs. And my son said, what's an underdog? And I said, oh, it's the Cinderella team. And my daughter said, I'm rooting for the Cinderella team. She loves Cinderella. So like she's the purest, most sweetest, wonderful thing in the whole world. And she couldn't stop staring at the freak show in front of her, which has never been visible ever. Like that's never been a thing ever. So Transgender Day of Visibility, you just swing by Ulta any day. But they had a choice. They had a choice. In the Biden's White House, they chose Transgender Day of Visibility. So what are we to do with this? So in the last hour, we talked about why transgender and why transgender is actually a perfect thing to replace Easter with, because it's the ultimate born again. I'm not going to do what we did in the last segment, but it's the ultimate born again. It's the ultimate die to self. Is you were born a man, you die to that, and you are born again. You have a second birthday as a woman now. You have a dead name as the old you, and now you're born again. It's like the ultimate secular death, burial, resurrection, right? So that's why the trans are the purest of all the woke, because they had the actual higher knowledge and courage to actually go forward with a true death and resurrection. Okay, so we did that in the last time. What do we do with this, though? By the way, it's not just Biden. The governor of New York ordered a bunch of famous landmarks in New York to be lit in pink and blue. The World Trade Center, Niagara Falls. There's a whole list. She put a whole list down of all the buildings. Lake Placid Olympic Center for some reason. Penn Station, a couple bridges. They're now all pink and blue. So why do this? I'll be very blunt here. The point of this is to get a rise out of you. No pun intended with the rise. He is risen. I didn't mean that. The point is to get a rise out of you. So be aware of that before you respond. I'm not saying don't respond. I'm just saying you got to know that the point is to trap you. So know that as you proceed. Saul Alinsky, he said the real action is the enemy's reaction. You're the enemy. So the real action, so the point of what they're doing is your reaction. Transgender Day of Visibility is not the point. Transgender Day of Visibility is just to poke you so that you react. And how you react is the point. If you want to know how the left operates, there's a website called Beautiful Trouble. And it's written by these activists, and it clearly describes all the principles of protest and different tactics in order to destroy things. And one of the principles is when challenging a more powerful target, and Christianity is the ultimate goal, by the way, of Marxism and the woke left and all of this. Everything else is just a means to get to destroy the church. That's the ultimate goal of all of it. So the church is the most powerful target. So when challenging a more powerful target, which by the way, they've infiltrated beautifully, and like they're ready to just, like there will be only a remnant remaining. Anyway, when challenging a more powerful target, the key to success often isn't what you do, but how your target reacts to what you do. During the Salt March of 1930, Indian independence activists famously kept walking, unarmed and undeterred, into the brutal blows of British police. Importantly, the press were there, the activists made sure of it, to document the colonial government playing the villain in predictably despicable fashion. The Indian nation rallied to the cause. World public opinion followed. Saul Alinsky later coined the term political jujitsu to describe actions like this. Confrontations like the Salt March enable under-resourced activist groups to use a powerful opponent's momentum against them by provoking a reaction and then watching them fall flat, literally or figuratively, in front of the cameras. Everyone loves it when Goliath bites the dust. I love it how they used a biblical reference there. So the point of Transgender Day of Visibility is to, and the Breitbart had, let's see, where is it, if it's still here. Breitbart had, Joel wrote an article of the 50 plus LGBTQ days. There it is. The 50 days of LGBTQ holidays that are just, let's see, coming up here. We got April. Is this April? Jeez, it's April. Next, or the end of the week is International Asexuality Day. National Youth AIDS Awareness Day. Geez, how many? A day of silence. I don't know. There's a National Transgender HIV Testing Day, Non-Binary Parents Day, and then April 26th is Lesbian Visibility Day, which also happens to fall in the middle of International Lesbian Visibility Week. That's just this month. Next month, you can look forward to, you can set your calendar, International Family Equality Day, International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. Who's phobic of the bis? National Asian and Pacific Islander HIV AIDS Awareness Day, which is also Agender Pride Day. Can we just not have like an all-encompassing HIV Awareness Day? Does every intersectional group have to have their own specific awareness? May 22nd is Harvey Milk Day. He was a pedophile. And May 24th is Pansexual and Pan-Romantic Awareness and Visibility Day. The poly-pansexuals, which you got to be, right? So the point of all of that is to get a rise out of you. It's to weaponize the great virtues of their cult against you, and that is acceptance, empathy, tolerance, and love. And you saw all that in Biden's proclamation. Let me just read the proclamation here. Transgender Americans are part of the fabric of our nation. Whether serving their communities or in the military, raising families or running businesses, they help America thrive. They deserve and are entitled to the same rights and freedoms as every other American, including the most fundamental freedom to be their true selves. But extremists, that's you, are proposing hundreds of hateful laws, that target and terrify transgender kids and their families. You're terrifying them. Silencing teachers, banning books, even threatening parents, doctors, and nurses with prison for helping parents get care for their children. It's just care. These bills attack our most basic American values, the freedom to be yourself, the freedom to make your own healthcare decisions, and even the right to raise your own child.